Shavua Tov. Today we'll start with the Gemara, but we want to study the Amudei Hod. So I don't know what pages you have or what you don't have, but in any event, the Gemara is on Daf Kuf Ches Amud Beis. And the Gemara starts on the top of the Amud with a statement of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel. Arba kosos halolu tzarech shiehei bahen kidei mezigas kos yofer. So we need what's called a rova revius of yayin chai, of pure concentrated wine, and then we add 3 parts of water, and we end up with revius. So we have a rova revius, and we add 3 parts of water. Now we start the main part of our sugya today. Sheson chai yotza, sheson v'vasachas yotza. So let's interpret it in the following way. If he drinks it without adding the water, that means he's got pure, undiluted wine, he fulfills his obligation. If he drinks them continuous, one after the other, in sequence, and he did not set up these kosos al seder habrachos, then he has fulfilled his obligation. Hishka mehem lebanav u'bnei beso yotza. In other words, he didn't drink it all himself, but he shared it with the members of his house. Now the Gemara goes back to analyze and interpret Shmuel's sentence, his ruling, in the following 2 cases. Number 1, Sheson Chai, where Shmuel said Yotza, and number 2, Sheson V'vasachas, where Shmuel says Yotza. Omar Rav, Sheson Chai Yotza. What does it mean, Sheson Chai Yotza? Let's ask the following question. If he drank undiluted wine, has he fulfilled his obligation in the perfect way? Shmuel is quoted as saying that he was Yotze, but it could be that that was only a partial fulfillment of the mitzvah. And that's exactly what Rava wants to point out. Sheson Chai Yotza, Amar Rava, Yidei Yayin Yotza, Yidei Cherus Lo Yotza. And Rava is introducing a new concept here called Cherus. So let's just make a note of this. It's kedai to write this out. Sheson Chai Yotza, Omar Rava, Yidei Yayin Yotza, Yidei Cherus Lo Yotza. Okay. Now we get to the next case. And that is Sheson V'vas Achas. Rav Omar Yidei Yayin Yotza. Now, so far, Yidei Yayin Yotza, in both cases, whether it's Rava in the case of Sheson Chai or Rav in the case of Sheson V'vas Achas, Yidei Yayin Yotza. Again, Shmuel just said Yotza. He didn't say Yidei Yayin Yotza. Rava and Rav are adding Yidei Yayin Yotza. Now, Rav goes on to say that, however, Yidei Arba'a Kosos Lo Yotza. Now, here we have a discrepancy between the non-fulfillment in the case of Rav interpreting Sheson Chai, and Sheson Chai non-fulfillment is Yidei Cherus. In the case of Sheson Vasachas, non-fulfillment, as Rav interprets it, is Arba Kosa. Now, in the case of Avas Achas, if you take a look above the Rashbam, we have Rashi. I'm not promising you this is really Rashi, but he's quoted as saying that Sheson Chai Shlo Mozgo B'Mayim B'Avas Achas Ira Arbason L'Toch Kos Echad. So we're just going to make a note of that, and we'll come back to this Rashi later on. But let's look at the Rashbam. And we'll start with Sheson Chai. The Rashbam is the fourth of the wide lines. Shalom Mozgon B'Mayim. Yotzo, K'gon Sheish Bo Revius Lu. So in other words, if he had done it the perfect way, it would have been a rova revius, adding to the mayim chai 3 more rova revius to equal to a revius. If he's only drinking concentrated, undiluted wine, then it's got to be revius, a full revius. So those 3 cups of water that he would have added are now wine. All right, let's fast forward to Vasachas. Ira Arbason B'toch Kos Echad Kach Pirush Rabenu Shlomo. So he quotes the Rashi that we have printed here, and he writes V'lo Nehira. He rejects it. Why? Once he pours all 4 cups into one large cup, then he only drank one of the 4 cups. So how could be Yotze with Vasachas? So high revius, Eno el lemuute pachos mirvius. I will tvei mirvius because echad chashiv kos echad. So you need a minimum of revius, but whatever you add above and beyond the revius, if it's in the same cost, it's all 1 cup. So you might have poured 4 revios from 4 different cups into 1 cup which you drank. Says the Rashbam, you drank only 1 cost, because even though you have now 4 revios, but it's all in 1 cup. Venerally, the Hachi Perusho. The Vasacha Shalo al Seder Mishnah Seder. Right, the Mishnah is going to give us a Seder. Exactly at what point in the Seder you drink whatever cup you're up to. And here, he did not drink the 4 kosos ala Seder. El Sheson Ritzufin. He drank them one after the other. So again, all this is as far as the Metzius is concerned. What's the Metzius that Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel was speaking about of Sheson Chai, and what's the Metzius of Sheson Vasachas? Sheson Chai means he drank a full revius for each coast, but it was undiluted wine. And Sheson Vasachas is Shalo al Seder Agodah. Now the Rashbam interprets Rava and Rav. So we start with Rava. Rava says Yidei Yayin Yotza, but Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza. So Rashbam says Yidei Yayin Yotza, Sheshosa Arba Kosos. I mean, this we'll have to think about. What does Rashbam mean, Shosa Arba Kosos? And here, instead of saying Yotza, it says Yidei Yayin Yotza. So what's the connection here between Yayin and Arba Kosos? However, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, in the case of Chai, Klomar Ein Zu Mitzvah Shlema, She'ein Chashivus El B'mayin B'yayin Mozu. It's got to be diluted in order to have Chashivus. But the Rashbam seems to imply Lo Ein Zu Mitzvah Shlema means he fulfilled the basic mitzvah, but he didn't fulfill the complete mitzvah. All right, there's another comment here in the Rashbam. We're going to leave it out. He talks about diminishing their wines and our wines. Okay, now we get to Rav, and we're talking about Sheson v'Vasachas. Once again, Rav used the same language as we saw in Rava in Chai, Yidei Yayin Yotza. But here the Rashbam introduces a whole new element into the equation. Yidei Yayin Yotza, Mishum Simchas Yontif. Right, we have a principle of Ein Simcha B'Yayin, so he fulfilled his mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. Very difficult Rashbam here because we're not dealing with Simchas Yontif here, we're dealing with Dar B'Kosa. Ki v'sanyo l'kamon, v'samachta b'chagecha b'aveh mesamcho b'yayin. Avol yidei Dar B'Kosa lo yotza, now again, let's keep in mind that Rava said Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza. Because he said Ein Chashivus El B'mayim Mozu. That's in the case of Chai. Rav is saying Yidei Arba Kosos Lo Yotza. In the case of Sheson V'Vasach. And then he adds V'kulon Chashivos Kos Rishon Lo Yosef. V'tzorach Lavi Od Sholosh Kosos Ala Seder. So do you see the switch here? In Rava, with regard to Shon Chai, it says Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, and the Rashbam introduces the Chashivus B'Yayin Mozu. So Ein Zu Mitzvah Shlema. In the case of Rav of Sheson V'Asachas, he says Yidei Arba Kosos Lo Yotza, because Kulan Chashuvas Kos Echad, Kos Rishon. Again, Sheson Vas Achas. We said Yidei Yotza, and the Rashbam introduced Mishum Simchas Yontif. If you take a quick peek at Tosfos, Divrei Maskil Yidei Yotza, Pirish Yidei Simchas Yontif. The Tosfos is reiterating the Rashbam, and in the previous Tosfos, Basachas Nirke Pirish Rashbam, Sheson Ritzufin. Below Pirish Rashi, She'ira Arba Son L'toch Kos Echad. The Shesa'an in the plural, Mashma Harbe Kosos. He drank more than one kos. Rashi is interpreting that he only drank one kos. Yidei Yain Yotza says Tosfos Pirish Yidei Simchas Yontif. Again, reiterating the Rashbam. The Salkadait hold the Tiknu Dalid Kosos lo nofik midei Simchas Yontif. Kos one. So what's the chiddush here that it was Yotzei Simchas Yontif? He drank 4 cups of wine, and we're talking about Yain Mozuk. So the Havamina would be that hold the Tiknu Dalid Kosos lo nofik midei Simchas Yontif elam keg Yotzei Yidei Arba Kosos. So here he says Yidei, Rav says Yidei Arba Kosos lo Yotza, and now we'd have a Havamina says Tosfos that since he's not Yotzei Arba Kosos, therefore he's not Yotzei Simchas Yontif. That was the Havamina. Komash Malon, the Maskona is that Yidei Yain Yotza, which means Simchas Yontif. Now take a look at Tosfos Sheson Chai Yotza, and Rav interpreted that Yidei Yain Yotza, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, and Tosfos says Mashma D'Lechatchila Boy Meziga. You only need mezigo lechatchila. I don't know, does Tosfos have Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza? I mean, that's what it says here. Omar Rabbi, Yidei Yain Yotza, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza. So I guess he's learning that Cheres is only a lechatchila. I guess. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the Amudei Hod. And once again, I'm a little bit confused as to what pages you have, what pages you don't have. I mean, John has the Sefer, so that's not a problem.
I have 11 to 20.
11 to 20, that's good. That's very good. So let's start on page 10. Now, some of this we may have done in the past, but I think, at least from my perspective, for myself, I need a chazar. So if you look on page 10, he starts what's called Simon Beis, and then after summarizing everything that we did until now, on page 11, he writes, after the first major paragraph, Hadvarim dechukim v'pirish haGemara. He has 4 kashas. Let's go over the 4 questions. And again, to go over these 4 questions, I think we need this this kind of summary that we wrote down here. So the first question, he says, Yidei Yayin Yotza, in the case of Sheson Chai, that means, although he's missing the extra element of Cherus, but he fulfills his basic mitzvah of Daled Kosov. And we even saw in Tosfos that he said, Mashvel Chatchila Boy Meziga. Yidei Yayin Yotza. Oh, 1 second. Right. So that's Yidei Yayin Yotza in the case of Chai. Now Shesov Vatzachas. Mispar Sheyotza Yidei Chovas Yayin D'Simchas Yontif. So again, the same phrase of Yidei Yayin Yotza of Shmuel, which is being interpreted by Rav and Rav, means 2 different things. Because in the case of Yidei Yayin Yotza, it means he fulfilled his basic mitzvah of Daled Kosov. But in the case of Sheson Vas Achas, Yidei Yayin Yotza means he was Yotzei Simchas Yontif. That's what we pointed out before. You're introducing a whole new element into the equation. And yet, as the Amudei Hod points out, the language here is identical. In both cases, it says Yidei Yayin Yotza. But in one case, Yidei Yayin Yotza, in the case of Chai, means Daled Kosov. In the other case, Yidei Yayin Yotza, it means Yidei Simchas Yontif. Tema says, I don't understand. The Nokar Chadol Lishna, the Yidei Yayin Yotza, who is parish, Tokadei Dibel L'Shnei Yonim Shonim. Same exact identical phrase means 2 different things in the same breath. Od kosher, L'gabi Sheson Chai, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza. What does that mean, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza? Lo Yotza L'mitzvah Mina Muvcha. Right? That was the Rashbam that we underlined here. Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, Klomar Ein Zu Mitzvah Shlema. The Ein Chashivas El B'Yayin Mozuk. And that's what Tosfos said again, Sheson Chai Yotza, Mashma Del Chatchila Boy Meziga. So in the context of Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, both Rashbam and Tosfos are learning. Again, we're talking about Sheson Chai. That Lo Yotza Shlemus HaMitzvah. He says, as Ikar HaMitzvah Kier. He did fulfill his basic mitzvah, even though the wine is concentrated and undiluted. L'gabi Sheson Vas Achas, Tika Omar Yidei Yayin Yotza, right, which we said means Yidei Simchas Yontif. But then it says V'yidei Daled Kosos Lo Yotza. The misparish after the Eved. Right, that's what the Rashbam said. Kulam Chashuvim Kos Rishon V'lo Yosef. So when it says here, Yidei Arba Kosas Lo Yotza, means he's not Yotze the mitzvah. He needs 4 cups. He only drank 1 cup. That's really strange because in the case of Son Chai, we're saying although he was Yotze, but he's missing an embellishment of the mitzvah, which means he's missing the element of Yidei Cheretz. But in the case of Shason Chai, we're saying that he really didn't fulfill the mitzvah Dalet Kosa. He drank 1 out of the 4. And what did he fulfill? He fulfilled the mitzvah Simchas Yontif. And Tosus works overtime. What was the Havmina? They didn't fulfill Simchas Yontif. He drank 4 cups of wine. My gosh. The miracle he's not drunk. And Tosus answers with a Salka Daitach, who would have a Havmina that since he forfeited the mitzvah of Dalet Koso, he loses the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. Which again, we don't understand how that operates, but so again, when we're talking about Yain Chai, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotze, it means he didn't fulfill the Shleimus HaMitzvah because he drank undiluted wine. When we get to the case of Sheson Vas Achas, and it says Yidei Arba Kosas Lo Yotze, means even with the evidence. Like he drank 1 cup. Okay, question number 3. Od kosher. Shagei Rava bo lefarish es ha-memra shel Shmuel. Ushmuel mayri bedin arba kosos. This was our problem. You're talking about Chai in terms of Cheres. Okay, that I can understand. And Rav is pointing out that you don't say the basic mitzvah of Arba Kosos, but you forfeited the mitzvah Shlema of Derech Cheres. Now we have Sheson V'Vasachas. And now we're saying that he did not fulfill the basic mitzvah of Dalet Kosos, as if he drank 1 kos. But he did fulfill Simchas Yontif. Again, Rabbi Yehuda said to the neighbor Shmuel, Yotza, in both cases. So now you're telling me Yotza, in the case of Son Vasachas, means Yotza Simchas Yontif. Shmuel, Mayri B'din Arba Kosa. Shmuel says, Arba Kosa Lolu. And then he goes on and says, Shison Chai, Yotza, Shison Vasachas, Yotza. He didn't mention anything about Simchas Yontif. We do our Rashbam with Tosus Nimtza, Shemash over Shmuel Agabi Shison, Devas Achas, Yideyayin Yotza Lomairi Klal, the Yotza Yideyayin Shel Dalet Kosa. What does it mean Yotza? He drank 4 cups, Devas Achas, Yideyayin Yotza. What does that mean Yotza? I mean, Shmuel's talking about Dalet Kosa. So now you tell me Yotza they miss Simchas Yontif? Who's talking about Simchas Yontif? Simchas Yontif Madik Hashmei. Who mentioned it? Question number 4. Od Kosher. Lama Gabi Shison Chai Komer Yidei Yayin Yotza. What's this language of Yayin Yotza? Lama Lo Ka'amar he should have said, Yidei Dalit Kosos Yotza. Why substitute the word Yayin for Dalit Kosos? Ukida Omar came, Legabe Shesam Vasachas, Yidei Dalit Kosos, Lo Yotza. So if there's a contrast there between Chai and Vasachas, the Vasachas Lo Yotza because he drank only one kos, and therefore it says Dalid Kosos Lo Yotza, then it should have said in the case of Chai, Sheson Chai Yotza Yidei Arba Kosos. And instead he says Yidei Yayin Yotza. What's that about? It's very odd that in the case of Sheson Chai, Rava changes the language and he says Yidei Yayin Yotza. What do you mean Yidei Yayin Yotza? Say Yidei Arba Kosos Yotza, in contrast to Sheson Vasacha. Begamte, Loma Omer Yidei Cheirus Lo Yotza, V'lo Omer Shlo Kiyam in a Muvchar. You're telling me that if he drank 4 cups of wine that were undiluted, that he didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Dalit Kosos B'Shleimus. But then it says Yidei Cheirus Lo Yotza. I mean, the implication is clear that he forfeited a certain mitzvah. Says Yidei Cheirus Lo Yotza. But you're telling me no, mitzvah mina muvchar. But it says lo yotza. Lo yotza means simple pshat, that he did not fulfill that mitzvah of cheirut. So that's what he calls hadvarim dechukim b'pirush haGemara. 4 questions. Now, it seems to me, I'm just adding my own comment here, my own 2 cents, that these 4 questions can be described like there's one common denominator that underlies all 4. I think they're all what we call diyuke lishonos. They're all analyzing meticulously the language that's used in the Gemara. I don't see here, offhand, tell me if I'm wrong, any conceptual objection to the law itself, the way it's being presented here by the Rashbam and Tosfos. He's not willing to question the halachic premise that in the case of Sheson Vasachas, Lo Yotzi Yidei Dalit Kosos. He's not willing to question the halachic premise that in the case of Sheson Chai, he fulfills his mitzvah Dalit Kosos. He's just lacking the shleimus ha-mitzvah of Yayin Mozul. He's not even questioning, in the case of Sheson Vasachas, the premise that Yidei Yayin Yotza means Simchas Yom, to begin on a halachic level, conception, meaning textually it's problematic. You know, it says Sheson Vasachas Yidei Yayin Yotza. We're talking about Dalit Kosos. Why does it say Yayin? And not only that, who says Shmuel is addressing the issue of Simchas Yom? But there are no kashas here that are anchored in the halach itself. How could it be that he fulfills his mitzvah of Simchas Yom? And even Tosfos goes further to explain the Havamina, why we would have thought maybe he forfeited the mitzvah of Simchas Yom. The question is more textual. There's no indication in the words of Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel that we're talking about Simchas Yom. The whole discussion here is addressing Dalit Kosos. Or take, for example, the fact that Shesam Vasachas Lo Yotza. Dalit Kosos he forfeits because it's as if he drank 3 cups and not 4. Let me say it the other way around. It's as if he drank 1 cup and not 4. So he has to fill in another 3. I mean, he doesn't seem to object to that. See, the Arbakosos Lo Yotza is a very strong argument on a halachic basis. One that I think even the Amudei Hod is not going to question. Because how can you separate these 4 kosos when you drank them consecutively? You're calling it 4 kosos, you drank 1 kos. Each kos is identified with a certain bracha. Okay. Now keep in mind that in Siman Aleph, where he spends an awful lot of time understanding the Tshuvas HaRosh, there we saw that the mitzvah of Dalit Kosos was established within the framework of Kosos Shel Bracha. And therefore it makes a lot of sense that in the case of Shesam Vas Achas, where he did not introduce the Kosos Shel Bracha, that Lo Yotzi Yidei Chovasam. Because even the Dalit Kosos mitzvah of Leil Pesach is related to the 4 Kosos Shel Bracha. He didn't have Kosos Shel Bracha. So therefore he forfeits the mitzvah of Dalit Kosos. So on a conceptual basis, I think we're on solid ground over here. But textually, in terms of Dikduke Lashon, bunch of difficulties here. You're introducing elements that are not written in the Gemara. And now he quotes Rabenu Peretz. So in Os Gimel, pretty much the entire paragraph here at the beginning of Os Gimel, I should say, is a quote verbatim of Rabenu Peretz. Sheson v'vas achas. So right now he's not addressing the case of Chai. Yidei yayin yotza. Right, that's exactly what we have here. Here's Shakuntris. Mishum Simchas Yontif. V'im Tov Pshito, Yesh Lomar, came in the Tkinim Rabban Avar Kosas, Gam Tzorech Yayin B'Shvil Simchas Yontif, Im Kein Tzorech, Shehei Oso Yayin Me'arba Kosas. All right, so far, if I understand this correctly, it's identical with the Tosas that we have on our daf. But now he adds the Od. The Od Yesh Lomar, the Hachin Perusha, Yidei Yayin Yotza, right, and we had a problem here. What's Yidei Yayin Yotza? It should have been consistent with what we had earlier. Yidei, right? Yidei Dalit Kosos Yotza. But just 1 second. Right. In other words, in the case of Sheson Vas Achas, why are you introducing Yayin here? Until now, we spoke about one second here. the Odye Shlomar, the Hochin Perusha. The Yain Yotza Pirish Me Arba Kosos. The Arba Kosos Lo Yotza Shalo Osa Mitzvah Min Amuvcha. Just 1 second. This V'Odye Shlomer, is it going back on the Vasachas? I'm assuming so. Because I think here the Chiddush of Rabenu Peetz is this V'Od, the last 3 lines here. That's where he's adding a new interpretation of the Gemara. Yidei Yayin Yotza. Pirush me arba kosos. They arba kosos lo yotza shlosa mitzvah min amuvcha. So I'm going to take a stab at this. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. You'll tell me. I think what Rabenu Peetz is saying in this V'Od is that the problem of not organizing the 4 cups and integrate and within the framework of 4 brachos is only a problem l'chatchila. Right. So this will, if that's the pshat in Rabenu Peretz in the V'Od, then we gain a great deal, because then it very much mirror images the first part, Rava's part of Shason Chai, where we said that because it wasn't Yain Mazug, therefore it's not a mitzvah chatchila. He's deficient. He's missing derech cheres. Here also, he's saying that Yidei Yain Yotza, even though it's Shalom ala Seder, Pirish me arba kosos. Again, I still don't understand why the shift to the word yayin here. No, Yidei Yayin Yotza. So I don't think he's introducing Simchas Yontif anymore. I think the V'Od, he's just dropping the ball on Simchas Yontif, which is a good thing, because we didn't understand who's talking about Simchas Yontif here. The Hacha Perushi, the Yayin Yotza, Pirush Me Arba Kosos. I guess there's a mitzvah drinking Dalit Kosa. And he drank Dalit Kosa. But Yidei Arba Kosos Lo Yotza, Shalo Asa Mitzvah Min Amuvcha. That by forfeiting the bracha element of each of the kosos, respectively, he cut down on his shleimus hamitzvah. So again, both Rav in the case of Chai and Rav interpreting the case of Vasachas are both claiming that although he fulfilled his basic obligation, he's missing some sort of embellishment. In the case of Chai, Rav is saying he's missing the embellishment of derech cheres. That's not the normal way you would enjoy wine. This is concentrated wine. That's not derech cheres. It's lacking chashivus, etc. And even in the case of Shason, the Masechet, the way Rav is interpreting it, he does achieve the basic mitzvah. He's missing a mitzvah min amuvchar, Because the right way to do this is to drink the 4 kosas al seder abrachos. But in both, excuse me, in both Chai and Bivasachas, he achieves the basic mitzvah. He's lacking some sort of a extra brownie points, some sort of embellishment, a mitzvah min muvchar. In the case of Chai, he's missing min muvchar of mozug. In the case of Vasachas, he's missing the mitzvah min muvchar of al seder abrachos. So do you think that's pshat? Well, let's see the Amudei Hod. Hine kosav Rabenu Peetz v'rusha hasheni. So he's referring to the V'yod. Demasha amru legabi sheson b'vasachas yotza. Afal pisha kavona sheyotzi yedei yayin desimchas yontif. So he's not interpreting the way I said it. He's going with the Pirush of the Rashbam and Tosfos. Ach mikol makom shaykh hadover liyayin d'dalit koso. Now let's pay attention. Shetiknu chachamim. Now moving on to page and days. Sheyayin d'simchas yontif. Yiskayim dafka b'yayin d'dalit koso. So I'm not sure exactly if I understand why this is so, but let's just take it at a mathematical level. There are Bonameda Takana that although with regard to, let's say, Sukkos or Shavuos, drink a cup of wine and you fulfill your mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. But in Pesach, there are Bonameda special Takana. It's not enough that you drink wine for the sake of Simchas Yontif. You've got to drink 4 cups and fulfill your mitzvah of Dalit Kosos, and with those Dalit Kosos, you can obtain the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. The Kasher Show says, Dalit HaKosos b'Masachas, Afal Pishlo Kiyim Mitzvahs Dalit Kosos. This is certainly not the way I interpreted Rabenu Peetz. He's saying he forfeits the mitzvah of Dalit Kosos because it's not all Seder HaBrachot. Mikomakom Kiyem Mitzvah Simchas Yontif Sherei Sof Kol Sof Shasa Hayayin Sheshasa L'Kiyem Din Shel Simchas Yontif V'Yayin Shemakayim Bo Kos Achas Midalit Kosos. This is interesting. Let's say he recited Kiddush, drank that kos, and then he immediately drinks another 3 kosas, or he recites Birkas Hamazon, makes the bracha on the yayin, drinks the kos, and then immediately drinks another 2 kosas, or 3 kosas. He's saying that since 1 kos of the 4 he got right, therefore he was Mekayim his mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. Usfirle Rabenu Peretz, the peers there, the Dalit Kosos called Achasi Mitzvah B'fnei Atzma. Elisha Kosos Trichos Zu Zu. Right, they're independent but yet interdependent. The lo shasas kulam lo kiyum a mitzvah v'dalid kosos. Af mikom makom ika kiyum chelik me mitzvah b'kos achas. He doesn't have the mitzvah v'dalid kosos because he only drank one, but he does have a mitzvah of one of the four. Valkein kiyum is a mitzvah shel simchas yontif. In other words, for simchas yontif, you have to drink a kos of the dalid kosos. Shari shasa yayin shel shesimchas yontif. There's a little bit of a typo here. Shari shasa yayin shel simchas yontif. Oh, you can't stop in the middle here. Sheshasa yain shel simchas yontiv toch kidei kiyum mitzvahs kos achas midalid kosas. The yidei dalid kosas lo yotza. Again, he's obtained the mitzvah of simchas yontiv, but he has not fulfilled the mitzvah of dalid kosos. Misparish, what does that mean? The lokie mitzvah simchas yontiv ki mitzvah min amuvcha. Whoa. He has not fulfilled simchas yontiv by drinking 4 cups, each of which is one of the dalid kosos. Shel mitzvah min amuvcha l'kayim v'shtias yayin toch kidei kiyum mole shel dalid kosos lo toch kidei kiyum chelki shel mitzvahs dalid kosos with 1 kos. With the Perusha or Rishon Srile Rabenu Peretz the Bekos Achas Shel Dalid Kos L'Kiyum Klal Mitzvahs Dalid Kos. Kevin Sheshosa Dalid Kos Bas Achas L'Kiyum Klal Mitzvahs Dalid Kos. So he doesn't even, in the first shot of Rabenu Peretz, he doesn't even give him credit for one of the 4 kosos. I guess because it's an all or nothing enterprise. U'memei lo yotzi dei chovas ha-mitzvah miyuchedet shel mitzvah simchas yontiv shel Pesach l'kayim simchas yontiv the yayin b'shtias dalid kosos. V'rakiyem es mitzvah simchas yontiv shel kol ha-mo'ados v'hainu yidei yayin yotzo. So it comes out here the way he's interpreting Rabenu Peretz. The entire discussion here about Shison Vasachas is completely addressing the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. And here Rabenu Peretz has 2 pirushim. According to one pirush, he forfeits completely the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif because he doesn't even have 1 kos of the dalid kosos. According to the second pirush, he has a partial kiyum of Simchas Yontif because of the first kos upon which he made a bracha, whichever kos it was, and that kos, when he drinks it, he obtains 1/4, shall we say, of the mitzvah Simchas Yontif. So now he calculates, what do we gain by Rabenu Peretz in terms of the 4 kashas, what we call the dikduke loshon that he had before in the Rashbam and Tosfos. Lefizeh miyushav haloshon yidei dalid kosos lo yotza davidumya the yidei cheres lo yotza. So we said that yidei yayin lo yotza Well, I'm saying in the case of Chai, Yidei Cheres Lo Yotza, which means that since he's drinking undiluted wine, which is not their Cheres, therefore he's lacking some element in the mitzvah Daled Kosos. And now we have Sheson Vasachas Yidei Arba Kosos Lo Yotza. HaKavanah Shlo Yotza Yidei Mitzvahs Daled Kosos Min HaMuvcha. No, I'm sorry, that's the case of Sheson Chai. The Sheson Vasachas HaKavanah Shlo Yotza Yidei Chovas Simchas Yontif Min HaMuvcha. Again, it's still very problematic because in the case of Chai, we're talking about the mitzvah of Daled Kosos. In the case of Shnon Vas Achas, talking about the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif. He says, Gamnicha, what else did we benefit from in Rabenu Peretz? Madika Omar, the Sheson B'Vas Achas, Yotza, and what does it mean? Yidei Yain Yotza, the Hukshal appears Rashbam and Tosas came in the Meir B'Yain Simchas Yom became Ein Ador Shach Klal D'Rei Shmuel. Right, Shmuel was talking about Daled Kosos. Now we're talking about Simchas Yontif. But Lepirish Rabenu and Peretz Miyushav. Now we have an answer to that question. The Afal Pi Shlokiye Mitzvahs Daled Kosos Atzman. Ach Mikomakom Shayach Hach Dina. The Yidei Yain Yotza L'Din Daled Kosos. K'van Yotza Yidei Simchas Yontif Kayemes B'Daled Kosos. Gam Kos Achas Yeshbot Mixas Kiyim Daled Kosos. So in other words, Rabenu Peretz is giving us a little bit of a bridge between Chai and Vasachas. Just like Chai is dealing with the issue of Daled Kosos, so too, again, behind the scenes, behind the curtain, even Sheson Vasachas is addressing the issue of Daled Kosos, but only in terms of Simchas Yontif, to propel the mitzvah of Simchas Yontif on a partial basis, because one of the cups of wine he made the bracha on, and on that coast he has a partial kiyum of Daled Kosos, at least according to the Od Pirish. Achadayin kosher the gam l'das Rabenu Peretz the yayin yotza. Inyan hayayin misparish b'shnei ofarim shon v'gav shon chai misparish yotzi yidei yayin the Daled Kosos v'gav shon vas achas yotzi yidei simchas yontif. So we still have the same pella, because when we said in Shmuel yidei yayin yotza, in both cases of chai and vasachas, they mean two different things. In Chai, we're saying he was yotze the basic mitzvah of Daled Kosos, although forfeiting their cheres. And in the case of Vasachas, he did not fulfill Daled Kosos, but Yidei Yain Yotze means he has a kiyum of Simchas Yontif. Gamadayin kosher lomalo koma rava the sheson Chai Yidei Daled Kosos Yotza. Oh, this I don't understand. What does he mean, Yidei Daled Kosos Yotza? Oh, I'm sorry, that's the case of Chai, right? And instead, it says Yidei Yayin Yotza. Why Yayin? Lo mizkiris hadoma b'tzuras remez. So Divrei Rava Gufa Hiskir B'Hemshech Dvarav Yidei Daled Kosos Lo Yotza. Why did he speak about Yidei Daled Kosos Yotza in the case of Chai, from the get-go. I mean, why does he say Yidei Yayin Yotze, not Yidei Dalit Kosas Yotze? V'hine Girsas HaRosh, V'cheinu B'Rabenu Yerucham, L'gabi Shason Chai, Goras, Yidei Dalit Kosas Yotze. Oh, that's very good. Right? Instead of Yidei Yayin Yotze, which would be a little confusing, it says in the Girs of the Rosh, Yidei Dalit Kosas Yotze. L'gabi Shason V'Asachas Goras, Yidei Yayin Yotze. Right, he leaves out Dalit Kosos because in Shesov Vasachas he's not Yotzei Dalit Kosos, but Yidei Yayin Yotza, which means, as we said before, a partial Kiyum is Simchas Yom. V'achein Omer b'Gemara Lefi HaMavukash D'Legabi Chai Nokat Yotzei Yidei Dalit Kosos Shalil Seder L'Gabi Shesov Vasachas Nokat Loshon Yayin. The Ma'ir Yayin, this Simchas Yontif Hashayeches with Dalit Kos. So in this last paragraph, based on the Girs of the Rosh, he justifies those nuances of different Lashonos between Chai and Bevasach. And now this leads us to the Shita of Rabenu David, which will be neder we'd like to cover tomorrow. Okay, then, so we'll be on the same Zoom link for Sanhedrin in about 8 minutes. Okay, then, wish you a very good day.